You're in outer space today.
Hey, Barry.
You look spiffed up.
Nah, it's just my hair's
In a
done.
ponytail?
It's in a band.
Okay.
Let me turn off my virtual
How
background.
did it go with the cat thing? You didn't actually give us a feedback on that yesterday.
It took me a long time to get a hold of the doc. So finally, when she called back, that's why I was kind of in and out of the session yesterday. So evidently, all the lab tests, and believe it or not, $2,000 worth of lab tests. Kidney, liver, blood, this, that, the other thing. $2,000. Didn't see anything.
Didn't find anything, neither positive nor negative.
Well, he's a little bit hyperglycemic. Like he might, in the future get diabetic because he's such a big, kind of almost fat cat.
Yeah, that's not too surprising.
Yeah. But, nothing else super wrong with the cat. It's just.
So the symptoms is what? Laziness?
No. Well, he didn't want to eat for a day and he was sneezing a lot for a day. So nothing to eat was serious. So that was a problem.
But no organic
fever. Right. So that fever, and that lasted a couple of days, and so they put him on an antibiotic, or giving him an antibiotic. But he's eating regularly now, and he's behaving like normal. He just doesn't like having an antibiotic shoved down his throat twice a day.
Well, yeah, who does?
So other than that, he doesn't seem to be, badly reacting. In fact, he's not even, holding it against us for feeding him his antibiotic.
Yeah.
Doesn't like it, but
Yeah. Well, that's sort of an interesting point, because if you give a creature negative feedback, something that they don't enjoy, they can either be what's the word I'm looking for? Resigned that you're doing the right thing, even though they don't like it, or they can echo back and amplify the don't like to do something that it knows you don't like. And whether we're talking about an animal or a human, that practice of echoing back an unwanted feedback is something that just drives me insane with humans who ought to know better.
I think Sam can speak at length on that one.
It's very complicated. If you think of it this way, if you hit a drum gently, you have a gently sound. If you hit it really hard, you get a very loud noise. So that's the reactive part of the layers. Let's say 3 layers. One is reactive. One is about the drum was fully inflated with full pressure, highest pressure before it bursts. If you hit it, it would explode. That would be the internal parameter. The third one will be what material is it made out of? Is it steel? Is that leather? Is that whatever? So I'm just giving you the 3 simple parameters to tell you that feedback are different depending on the parameters. So just be careful and be curious and have fun with it. Then you will get into trouble. It will not drive you crazy. You will say, I wonder why it reacted this way. Then you're good.
Yeah, because in my experience, because most of the people I communicate with are online. I communicate with far more people online than face-to-face in real life. And of course, online, you can't see facial expressions, body language, tone of voice. You get just the text.
Right.
And every year, I encounter some correspondent who just perplexes the hell out of me, that nothing seems to make them evolve in a positive direction, that almost everything generates a negative feedback that is a vicious cycle. And I have a flaw. I'm patient and persistent to a fault.
Yeah.
And I'm the last person to throw in the towel and give up on somebody.
I know.
But damn it, I have to learn to throw in the towel and give up on people who just aren't going to respond no matter anything I try. I simply don't have a clue, how to bring them out of whatever they're in.
Yeah, that's good. I realize that you do, but you actually have 2 flaws.
Only
not
two?
just one,
Only two?
only two that I can talk about on specific on this topic here. Okay. Flaw number one is a lot of time you go extremist.
Go what?
Extremist. You're like the professor that makes sure every student get 100%. Everybody, the graduate must get an A. That's your attitude. You need to make sure everything is perfect. You
set
will
the
not
bar-
tolerate.
Set the bar too high.
Yeah, your bar is too high when you communicate with people. That's one of the biggest
Yeah.
flaw I noticed about you. If I
Yeah,
may
yeah.
speak out about that, okay?
Guilty, 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 guilty.
Okay,
No,
so
not guilty.
I'm just telling you, look, you need to lower the bar. If my student pass the test and have fun with it, it's more important than getting an A.
Yeah, and I have found that as I lower the bar step by step by step by step by step, I sometimes get all the way down to the lowest possible bar.
That's another
that
extremist.
you cannot
I know.
possibly get under.
That's flaws number two. Now you have a tool like Joshua introduced to you. You can now copy and paste it. I wonder why my correspondent is responding this way. Can you help me? Use the tool.
Yeah.
That's not a flaws at all. What it does is it will, what should I say? It will embrace, it will allow you to confirm that, yes, it's beyond my limit. I'm already at the bottom of my toe and I need to get some help. It's like the stuff is too hard for you to touch it. You need to wear a mint. Like, it's as simple as that. Use the tool. Otherwise, you'll be burned.
You know the mystery genre Hercule Poirot?
I need to talk something. Go ahead.
Who wants to go first? You want to go first?
No, it's Sam. Yeah, go for it. You raise your hand.
Can I observe simply that when Sam is speaking, you don't necessarily acknowledge what Sam is saying, you riff on it, but you don't necessarily reflect an understanding of it.
How do you know that I didn't understand it?
Back very fast.
Yeah, I do come back very fast. I'll grant you that. I'll grant you that.
I'm wondering whether what Sam said landed.
Oh yeah, yeah. The fact that I set the bar too high and keep it too high too long is clear. Sorry?
What was the second point that Sam was making?
That was the point he was making.
No, there was a second point.
After that,
yes.
Then I didn't hear it.
Aha. So I was hearing that, and I was also observing that you didn't hear it.
Aha. All right. So what is your interpretation of the point that I didn't hear?
That you now have a tool.
Oh, yeah. I remember he said I have a tool, but the thing is, I don't know what the tool is.
You're responding to me before I finish.
Yeah.
So that's what
I'm saying there is a tool that I don't have because I don't know what the tool is.
No, the tool is GPT. You didn't hear Sam say that.
That I didn't hear him say.
Yes.
And I am, by the way, I am using that. I have begun to use that.
So anyway, sorry, I was just observing and I was just trying to see whether or not you heard what Sam was saying.
Yeah, no, the fact is that I have been using GPT extensively in all of these various cases. I have like 3 or 4 cases in the air right now, and I have been using GPT in all of them. I can't say that it's working in all of them, not yet, but it is at least partially working in some of them. But what I was going to say was, I hardly ever watched the Agatha Christie mystery series with Hercule Poirot. You know, they did a whole TV series with David Suchet playing Poirot. And I remember one clip that sticks with me. So Poirot is dealing with the characters in the particular mystery, and there's this one elderly woman in the story who is driving him crazy because he can't get the information out of her that he needs to solve the mystery. And he says to her, "Madam, my patience is dwindling." My patience, and I think you would never anywhere else in the Poirot series hear him say a remark quite that on point, quite that blunt. My patience, madame, is dwindling. And what I need to do is become aware that my patience has dwindled to 0 and declare that, as bluntly as possible. And mostly just throw up my hands, throw in the towel.
Yeah.
I think in that story, he basically does solve the mystery, because that's it's a novel. But yeah, I got to be able to say, ladies and gentlemen, my patience is dwindling.
I'm so glad you say this last word. My patience is dwindling. Let me ask you this, if I may. When your patience is dwindling, knowing that you are really, really good at your patient, and a person that's really, really good at a patient and his or her patient is dwindling, what do you think about the other side's patient will be?
That's a hard question to answer, because I suck at theories of mind. I absolutely suck at forming reliable, testable theories of mind of somebody who I just don't get.
Okay.
Even if somebody who I'm having a good relationship with, I still suck at theories of mind.
Okay, good. So let me see if I can get it to you this way. You are like a car that can go as fast and as straight line as possible, and you can go reverse. You can go this way or you can go that way.
Mhm.
And then when you finish, you're going this way, you already reverse at the maximum speed on the reverse gear. Now you want to go the other extreme, which is you go sideways. So you got all 365 degree of that. You find all 365 degree, even in the 0.01 degree, that kind of extremely as you go. And you see how much you're focusing on is that you're going, like I said earlier, you expect an A+ student in every class, in every student. My suggestion to you is that have compassion. Is like, look at it this way. It's like, you notice when you say something and you get like pumped up, you notice that your shoulder goes up. Yeah. Okay. Catch yourself doing that. As soon as you do that, it's time to take a deep breath. Okay. It's okay to have a C student, my dear.
Can I just add an interjection here? When you say you have to have compassion,
Compassion, yeah.
how can you have compassion if you haven't a clue what
That's right.
affective emotional state is?
That's
all
why
the words in the dictionary that can name affective, and he can't find one that seems plausible.
Okay, good. Ask that question to ChatGPT right now and see what it says.
Oh, I asked it actually yesterday.
Good. I'm so glad you did. You're ahead of me then.
You know what it said? One it gave me back it gave me a list of, I think, 10 possible things that could be the right answer.
Yeah.
And one that it thought was most likely was called sentiment.
Beautiful.
What does the word sentiment mean?
Tell me.
It's the one thing that I can't get the data to. It's a suitcase word.
Mm.
It's a class that includes all possible feelings. What is the name of your sentiment? I haven't a clue. So yeah, I can't get your sentiment because I don't know what dimension of sentiment is the one that's in play. Go ahead, Sam.
I'm going to tell you something. It may not make sense to you, but just trust me on this one, on that one. Compassion is with the heart, not with your head. It does not compute.
Well, so if I say I'm vexed and perplexed, is vexed and perplexed here or here?
I don't know. As soon as you go here, you're no longer in the compassion mode.
Well, if somebody says
you try to compute it with your head right now. As soon as you try to compute your head, you're in trouble.
I'm looking for a word because I have to.
I know you cannot use word. As I say, you cannot use word because as soon as you go into word, you go into your word mode. Word mode is your brain. That's what I'm saying. That's why it does not compute. This is what I'm saying to you. How much I love you, I pull out a calculator, try to figure out how much I love you. Does that make sense?
But here I shrug. Okay. Here's a shrug. Okay. So I'm shrugging like I haven't a clue. So I can say out loud, I don't have a clue. Or I can shrug my shoulders and scratch my head, which non-verbally says the same message. And they can say, Barry, you're frustrated.
Frustrated. Perfect. So instead of going frustrated, instead of trying to figure it out, said, it's time for me to stop figuring out. All I do is I have compassion with my heart. My heart feel warm. Put your hand around your heart. Just put your hand and just trust me. And breathe.
Cratch, cratch.
Lower your shoulders.
You see how I sigh?
Yeah, if you want, what we can say, ah.
So when I sigh, what is an exhalation of exasperation?
Mhm.
The Yiddish word for that is cratch.
You're such a funny man.
The thing is that in English, we do not have a word to articulate, I'm exhaling in exasperation. I'm cratching.
Again, you're going extremist again. It's exasperation. I'm just telling you to breathe, my dear. Just breathe. It's not about exhausting all the last particle of the oxygen in your breath. No, it's not that.
Can the person who's reading text tell that I'm doing that? Can the person that only can see text, not video?
Okay, let me show you something. Let me show you something. Okay, so pay attention here. Noticing that as I'm standing up, your body will feel like standing up too, right?
It didn't.
You didn't feel a thing. You're all in your head.
I had no impetus to imitate your body. I had no.
But you can't even detect a slightest feeling of that. It's called mirror neurons.
I know what they're
Okay.
called. I do not imitate body language. I simply don't.
Wow.
And I can even tell you why.
Perfect. I'm listening.
Okay, I'll tell you a story. We're children. My brother and I are, I'm going to say, maybe around 8 or 9 years old. And it's a weekend, a Saturday or Sunday. And I'm outside playing with the neighbor kids. And my mother calls me in for lunch, or maybe it's dinner, but it's probably lunch. And so I come in and we sit around the table, my parents and my older brother, who's just 1 year older than me. And as I sit down, I am reciting what's going on with the kids in the playground, and the kids I'm playing with. My brother, who's sitting to my left, does this. Now I have to get a little closer so you can see. Were you able to see that?
Yeah.
So now I had never heard of the expression rolling your eyes. It was not part of my knowledge base, but I saw him do that. And I stopped talking and I actually looked at my dad, I think, and meaning my dad says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Steve did this." And I go like that. Now, at this point, you might imagine how my father would answer, but I'll tell you how he did answer. He said in a very stern command voice, "It doesn't mean anything. Pay no attention." And I was a pretty obedient kid in those days. And so I understood my instruction from my father: you do not pay attention to body language. It's not allowed. Do not. And do not echo it back. That's my understanding of what pay no attention. Doesn't mean anything. Don't pay any attention. And decades later, when I was in my 30s, and I was talking to my father on the phone, like on a Sunday phone call, and I said, Dad, body language does have meaning. You should pay attention. He says, "That's a lot of hooey. That's a lot of nonsense." My dad, by that time, I think, was in his 70s, and I'm in my 30s or whatever it was, 60s. My dad never believed in recognizing, interpreting, and responding or echoing body language. It took me until, I think, the 1980s to find enough scientific evidence that there really is meaningful decodable information in nonverbal communication. It was forbidden. It was verboten in my family life, or 1950s or whatever. You didn't do that. And so I never developed the pattern recognition training that a brain recognizes, responds to mirror neurons. I was trained to not have that part of the brain developed.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the story, and thank you so much for telling me the whole stages of what you've done. And this is really important topic for me because, first of all, a couple of things that I want to share with you. One is that verbal communication only represents 20% of the communication.
or less.
You know that. I don't have to show that to you.
maybe even less.
I mean, 20% is a, it's a
Right.
makeup number pull out of my head. It's like that. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is that because of that, the majority of the message is in the nonverbal. Okay. And I'm grateful that because your dad, tell you don't pay any attention to that rolling eye thing. Because of that, you have take your focus 100% on the nonverbal part of it. And that's why you're so good at what you're doing today. Because of that, distraction was removed from you. Can you imagine you take the 20% communication and you become an expert on the 20%? Actually, you blow it up to 100%. And this is what I tell people about Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, right? Can you imagine a boy grew up in the perfect condition, babysit, pampered, in all that stuff, had never seen illness, never seen sickness, never seen poor, never see poverty, all the way to 39 years old. So, and when he sees something painful, like somebody's dead, somebody's sick or whatever, he have maximum capacity of compassion because it was not there before. It's like taking a frozen ice cup from the freezer and then pour hot water into it. Just pour the room temperature hot water will break it, shatter it, right? So you have a lot of training for the non-verbal communication part. I mean, the verbal communication part of it, text-based verbal communication coming from auditory mode, and you have expanded from 20% to 100%. You have 5x sensitivity, you have 5x of depth, you have 5x of everything there is to give you from the verbal text-based communication, if I may say that. Okay, so what it does give you an advantage. So that's why you're so good at what you're doing, and people respect you for that. At the same time, you struggle with the other side of it because you have, like you say, 0%. And I was surprised I've done this standing up thing with thousands of people, and you're the only one that I'll remember for life of my life that you have no reaction at all. I was like, what? But at the same time, I made my extreme cases, like I say. So my suggestion to you is that instead of telling you to take a deep breath when your shoulder goes up this way, when you notice that your shoulder go up this way, you're in your intense mode. I call that like overdrive, like you're pushing your gear to the maximum, whatever you call that, to get the power out of it. And you have gone through all the things that you try. Once you hit your limit, take a break. It's like, it's time for me to take a break. Per Sam's instruction, whatever you want to put your label around it, that will help you to take a different perspective. Because I cannot stop you from getting your head, and Sam noticed that too. It's like you're always in your head, which is fine, which is a gift. And you are very smart. You're very, shall I say, compassion in your own way. And you're doing your very best based on the limited, sort of like you're colorblind, but you can see red a little tiny little bit. So you have capacity to have compassion, but you're using your head to do the compassion part, which is really, really hard. And I'm really admire the way you do it. It's like, I never seen that before. So thank you for allowing me to do this with you. It means a lot to me.
When I first went to talk to a psychologist, two things he said to me. He says, number one, he says, it's like your antenna have been cut off, your feelers. And he used that metaphor. It's like your feelers or your antenna, you don't have any antenna, meaning recognizing the nonverbal. And that was true.
Yeah.
But he recognized it and created that metaphor. And then he also said to me, he said, Barry, he said, you're sui generis, meaning one of a kind. That's Latin. But if you have a classification and you put people in different categories, he said, the category that I'm in, I'm the only one in that category.
Yeah.
And I recognize that both of those things were insightful observations.
Yep.
So what I had to do after I had this conversation with my father is I had to say, okay, nonverbal communication, facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and emotional states that they correspond to do exist, and they have names.
Yep.
And you can find maybe in poetry or maybe in the dictionary the names of all the emotional states or maybe the poetic metaphors that suggest them, and that you can articulate an emotional state by finding a phrase or a word or a name that names it. And I know, because I'm mostly on keyboarding text, that I have to introduce the name of the emotional state I want to reveal, because if I don't reveal it by giving its name, they won't be able to read between the lines and get it. And as Sam knows, I keep telling people, if you can't figure out what state I'm in, just assume I'm vexed and perplexed. Most of the time, you'll be right. So I had to get all of that stuff into the cognitive portion of my brain, because the part that the pattern network, the pattern recognition network that most people have, my childhood brain never wired up the pattern recognition for nonverbal. I had to construct it cognitively as an express theory and model. That's one of the reasons I'm sui generis.
So in if with NLP, like neuro linguistic programming.
Yeah, I won't say I'm an expert in it. I've certainly heard it and looked up its meaning. I don't know that I could give you a good essay on it.
Yeah, I'm a master in that. Okay, just to let you know, I have a master in that 20 years ago, something like that. So anyway, there's a way to go about doing it. As you know, there's a technique, it's called timeline. So you draw, so on the floor at home, so you go beginning of the time at the end of the time. And where present time is right here, and you walk back all the way back to your childhood, to wherever that time be happen. And then what you do is, when you get there, is you feel like you are then the 8 or 9, 7 years old, whatever that age that you may be, and go through the whole experience again with your dad and your brother. And you do tape editing. We call it tape editing.
Tip editing?
Tape. Like
tape editing. Tape editing.
Yeah, that's sort of like editing your backspace, your keyboard, and change some text over there, so that you not really erase it, but be respectful. Thank you. The language is, thank you, Dad, for allowing me to be who I am today. The gift of who I am today is because of what you just told me. Not blaming it, not cursing it, not saying this wrong or good or bad, just appreciating the gift that you have received over that time. He must have a reason why he tell you what it is, so you get the gift of it. You enjoy you've been writing on the gift for this time. Then you can go back and say, well, I now like to have a different path that develop my nonverbal communication skills, that I like to put my antenna back, if I may. Okay. So how would I do it? So you cross that, that the bump that you're going through, that you cross that again until you get it sort of like, oh, I can feel a little antenna sticking out. I implant it, or whatever you do. I can do this with you on the separate one-on-one session, if I may. All you need to do is, so what you do is verbally, you use your verbal language to change your neural, setting, or whatever you want to call that, conditioning, so that you get that antenna back. If you want, you don't have to.
Yeah, the question is whether at age 78 I can wire up a neural network section to do that, because that's normally you do that in your pre-teens.
That's not true. Not true. Not true.
Then why
so think of it this way, right? Think of it this way. Even Buddha at age 39 can change his way of compassion and extremists, and he has no compassion at all until that compassion have been installed. So think of it like your antenna. You recognize the need of antenna. You recognize the need that you don't have an antenna. You recognize the need that what was the timing that the antenna was sort of taking away from you, or whatever, surgically removed from you verbally. And now you verbally install it back. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It will not make sense to you because you cannot think of it this way. It doesn't compute, but logically, neurologically, it will work this way, because all you can imagine as you lay down, you can play in your mind like, at 7, I noticed my antenna is sticking out, and my dad's like, bam, or whatever. I'm like, okay, thank you, Dad, for giving me the gift. First of all, the key really is appreciating what you currently have, because as soon as you're appreciating it, then you receive the gift of it, right? Once you receive the gift of it, then you can say, well, I received the gift. I want the other gift back too. So don't take that away from me. Or I want the other gift that is antenna. So you may look. You and I know that you may live to 120 years old. How's that? Whether you like it or not, we don't get the choice.
That would be unusual.
Well, it's not unusual at all, given the technology of medical condition today. Piece of cake. I'm not kidding you.
What I gave back as a result of this transformation beginning at age 40, when I realized that that I had this very strong cognitive faculty and almost a non-existent affective, what's the word I'm looking for? Receptiveness, awareness. Affective awareness was really, very attenuated. Because I had to construct it cognitively using the only tools I had, I developed a mathematical theory of emotions and learning, which I then gave away to the world. Because I'm not the only one who has strong cognitive skills, but weak emotional intelligence. And so for people who are weak in emotional intelligence, but strong in math, maybe they can use the tools for thought, the tools for affective computing. And by the way, my closest friend here in Boston, who is a professor at MIT in the media lab, created the discipline called affective computing. And she didn't create it out of thin air. She created it as a reaction to being close to me. She realized that there was a need for affective computing because computers are also autistic.
Yeah.
They don't have the antenna.
Yeah.
And she says, how are we going to give not only the antenna to the computers, but the calculus to decode the signals and to construct a model of affective state? And from my perspective, the relationship between affective state and the learning process is what I really wanted to focus on. Yeah. So for me, it was the interplay of emotions and learning, which was the kernel of this, why it's important, okay? But I had to construct it at age 40 out of the only tool for thought I had, which was mathematical reasoning, which Sam Hahn knows a lot about because that's what his father had, mathematical modeling. That was the tool. I don't have the mirror neurons that you assume that everybody has. They just never got wired up.
No, it was there. It just never allowed it to grow.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
All that. Yeah. So you have a tiny bit of it. I'm sure you noticed that.
Well, if somebody yells at me, I'm certainly aware that they're yelling at me. If somebody hits me, I'm certainly aware that I have been struck, by a blow. So what happened is that when I was a child and my older brother, who was twice my size, didn't like something I was doing, you know how he let me know that he didn't like it? He hit me. In fact, he hit me so much I had bruises all up and down my arms and my legs. And one time I came out of the shower, so I just had a towel wrapped around me, and my parents saw that I had all these bruises. Because, normally I would have a shirt on or pants on. They said, Barry, how'd you get all those bruises? I said, oh, that's where Steve hits me. Oh, okay. Get it? My parents became aware that my brother was hitting me, and that was fine. Not a problem. Okay. Never said, why is your brother hitting you? I don't know why he hits me. They never bothered to find out that he was giving me nonverbal feedback for something I was doing that he didn't like. It wasn't just rolling his eyes. He was using violence on me to get me to stop doing whatever it was that I was doing that he didn't like, which I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And my parents thought that's normal. That's fine. We don't have to we'll have to worry about that.
I got two points I want to make for sure. In the old days, they don't tell you, the parents tell you, I love you, or the old days, the father doesn't tell you, I love you, Barry. The way they love you is that they will work hard and they work very, very hard to bring home bacon and feed you and give you a safe home to it. That's how they love you. Yeah. That's how to translate the language. So that's one thing.
I know my father loved me, right. But when he got older and was retired himself, he would actually say on the phone, I love you. And that was almost the only verbal conversation. He would have very, very short conversations.
That's right.
He basically wanted to say, how are you? And I love you. And that was basically the totality of our phone conversations when he was in his 70s or early 80s.
It's not easy for him to do that, but he did it. That's good. So the other thing I want to bring out is I want to remember that if you remember 2 weekends ago, when we got heated conversation where you say something like, I noticed that when I get yelled at, my brain shut down. So if I remember correctly, so you do have loud auditory crew that your brain do shut down without the language being the trigger, should I say?
Yeah. And when I point out to people that the person probably doesn't hear you when you're yelling at them, especially female parents, they'll go, yeah, I never thought of that before, but you're right. When I yell at my kids, they have no idea they only don't know when I was mad. They don't know what I was mad about because the words that articulated the reason were lost.
Yeah.
And that's why I turned, you say go sideways?
Yeah, go sideways. Yeah.
What I did is instead of writing prose, scientifically articulate, grounded prose, I would go sideways and write song parodies. And I would publish them on my blog, which they're not reading. My therapy was to write song parodies. And I think Sam knows some of these. Okay. Eventually, they might find out that I wrote song parodies and they might take umbrage or not, or they might laugh. The ones who laughed, we became fast friends. The ones who took umbrage, well, went our separate ways.
Yeah.
But I would go sideways and write song parodies, which was my therapy.
Yeah.
But again, what I wrote was the lyrics, music. I would find the music where the mood of the music sort of fit. I would take the existing lyrics from the Beatles or Elvis, whoever, but take the lyrics and line by line by line, I would tweak the words to fit the case at hand. But I was always working in the words, not diagrams, not cartoons, not paintings, not music, not singing, just the lyrics, just the words, just the poetry.
Yeah. So in that case, you want to do some, instead of auditory, maybe you want to go to the visual part of it, drawing a cartoon. Right now we have AI tool for cartoon drawing and pictures. That would be a good tool for you to play with, because you just have gently going the other direction that will allow you to develop, gently, I call it gently allowing that skill set to slightly develop. One of the things I remember that, how when you play, have somebody use the finger to draw something at the back. So that will develop your kinesthetic feeling about, okay, what did you write? Is that 5 or is that 2 or whatever that was? Okay, so again, we have 5 sensors. So pick any sensors that you want to do, because each sensor the more you develop in each of the sensors will allow you to grow the antenna for the sensors, because the sensors are important in survival. It bring more enjoyment, more happiness to you in your life. If trust me, you and I will be talking when you're 120 years old.
That would surprise me.
It's not a surprise to me at all.
Yeah. I should point out, by the way, I'm very nearsighted, and even with these relatively new glasses, I got the prescription, I think, in last December. Not only is it hard for me to pick up micro expressions, but at a distance of about 15 or 20 feet, I can see a person, I go, I can't get enough detail to recognize which person that is. I know it's one of my neighbors, but I can't recognize their face from more than about 20 feet. So being able to pick up micro expressions, even with glasses on, I'm still too nearsighted to pick up the detail for the slight inflection of the eyebrows and whatever. And so even if I wanted to see them, I would need like a telescope or some, magnifying instrument to enable me to see a close-up of the face. If I can see a close-up of your eyes, I can pass the eyes test, that thing where you try to figure out what emotion is from the eyes. If I can get the picture as big as the monitor of just the eyes, I can do better than a median score on picking one of 4 emotional states that corresponds to. But at a normal distance, forget it. I can't get enough detail.
Understood. Again, The antenna is too small. The antenna is too, I
Coarse.
say, it's
Too coarse.
it is sprouting right now as we speak.
Yeah. I mean, if I put you on speaker view so I
Right.
can get you as big as it can be,
Right.
now I can have to, I can't talk because I won't see you. Say something.
You pin me. You don't have to put me a speaker view. You pin me. You know how to do pin? You go back to gallery view and pin me.
Yeah, let's see. Gallery view and pin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Top right hand corner with the 3 dots, you pin him.
Okay,
Yeah.
pin. Okay.
Yeah. Now you can talk and
Now I can see your eyes.
yeah.
And
Now we're
maybe
talking.
maybe if I stare at them for about 10 seconds and you don't change them, I can recognize, you got your eyes in a bit of a slit. Your eyebrows are basically not raised, they're sort of neutral. You've got a little bit of a cleft there, which I think is normal. So you have I would say you have a serious face, but kind of neutral and serious. But look how long it takes me to analyze that if I blow up your face so that I can actually look at the detail of it. And in real life, I can't get enough detail, or it goes by too fast.
Yeah.
Because I'm very, very slow at analyzing. I can do it. It's
Yeah.
like when people read my text, I can write a paragraph of text. It might take them 20 minutes to read a paragraph and figure out what I said.
Yeah.
But they won't tell me that. They won't.
As you're describing this, Barry, you are like a 3-year-old reading the sentence 1 letter at a time, and then try to phonetically sound out the word to say so that you know the words. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. So because I'm on the social networks, which is text,
Right.
and I'm writing at my sort of college level writing,
Right.
I have no idea who is able to read a paragraph of my text and get it, and who is just scanning it and their eyes are glazing over and in one eye and out the other.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people who don't get anything out of my writing, but I have no idea who they are or how they transmit the negative feedback. They didn't get anything out of what I wrote.
Good. So if I want to recommend you to something that's effective that I know of, that would be the easiest thing and it's more fun for you to do, would be go volunteer in the library or kindergarten or the daycare center that reads story to the young children and see their feedback, because it's purest, simplest, it's real, genuine interaction that you can see face to face.
Did I ever tell you my stint as a volunteer in the Science Museum? Do you know that story?
No, I did not know that.
I want to tell you that story. Okay. When I first moved here in the late 80s, and I've been in here for like less than a year, my same friend who eventually started affective computing, but she knew me from Bell Labs from New Jersey. She said, Barry, she says, I heard that they're asking for volunteers at the Science Museum. She says, you'd be great. Why don't you go volunteer? So around 89, 88 or so, I became a volunteer at the Boston Museum of Science, which is the biggest science museum in New England. And I began in the little computer area, and then I moved to the Children's Discovery Space. And there I was face to face with children, and of course the adults, the parents. And it was a Montessori room, so you had all these little things to play with. Okay, and I would interact with the children, and because I was interacting with children, I was obviously not going to communicate with them at a college level of speaking. Okay, it was mostly nonverbal, and I spent, I think, 10 years in the Children's Discovery Space. And then I moved to Connor's computer space, where I did the puzzle activity. And the whole reason I did that, well, 2 reasons I did that. One is by that time I had developed the theory of emotions and learning. So I wanted to test the theory to see if I could reduce it to practice. But I needed to have real people solving real simple puzzles, things that they could do in 20 minutes. And I could actually see them, within 3 feet, and see if I could detect their emotional state as they were playing with the resources, and then figure out how to optimally coach them, minimally coach them, so they would discover. These were called discovery spaces, okay? Discovery learning. So I did that for a total of 25 years.
Wow.
And the reason I stopped doing it is because I had developed this whole collection of puzzle activities. I literally bought the puzzles, about $1,000 worth of puzzles over the years. And I had two big satchels that weighed about 20 pounds or 50 pounds. I'd bring them in every Saturday and set them up. And the people would come and they would play with the puzzles, and I would engage with them in the style of reading their emotional state and then trying to figure out how to engage with them to facilitate their discovery learning without giving it away. The board of directors of the museum, which included people from Google, people from Microsoft, people from, I don't know, AT&T, all these big CEOs, they would have people on the board of directors. The board of directors says the museum has to have a defined message. And the message has to be, and they wrote down the message, and all the activities, all the exhibits, all the had to be on message. They had to be an approved message. My puzzle activity was idiosyncratic. I created the puzzle activity. I bought the puzzles. I brought them in. And I might have had one or two young people who would alongside of me, but it wasn't an official activity of the museum. And when they changed the policy, the people that were supervising my activity very regretfully told me I couldn't do the puzzle activity anymore. I could still do the things that the teenagers were doing, which is interpreting the banal exhibits. I said, you don't need me, PhD from Stanford, with this puzzle activity to do what the teenagers are doing. If I can't do the puzzle activity, which was very popular, it was one of the most popular activities on a Saturday afternoon. I said, you've written me out of existence. What I can contribute uniquely, I can't do anymore. And that was the end of my 25 years.
Wow.
And my 25 years was about 6,000 hours. Every Saturday for 25 years, you work it out, it's about 6,000 hours. And my loaded, if they were paying me to do that at a loaded salary that would be comparable to a person like me, that's about $3 million worth of loaded salary.
Wow.
I donated $3 million worth of value over 25 years, and they threw it away.
Yeah.
And that's not the only situation where I have been marginalized for contributing something that nobody else could contribute.
Thank you for sharing this wonderful, heartwarming story. And this is a gift you received. I also believe that you got at least $10 million worth of feedback from those children that you never have to pay them to give you feedback on.
What I got was a proof, more than one proof. First of all, that I could reduce to practice the theory of emotions learning, but more importantly, and this is the key thing, among the other volunteers who were working alongside me, some were teenagers who were in high school, and some were young adults who, like me, were giving away a Saturday. Okay. One young fellow named Julian, he was probably in his, I'm going to say his early 30s. And he was very interested in this puzzle activity that I was doing and picking it up by osmosis and occasionally sitting in for me. One time I came in and he was talking to a parent about an activity with the child that the child was doing. And he was explaining to the parent the interplay of emotions and learning. And I looked at this and it blew me away, because that was the very first time that another adult understood the theory, the model, and could explain it. That proved that I wasn't the only person who understood this model and could articulate it and use it. Yeah. And over time, I realized that there were other people who could make use of these concepts and reduce them to practice. So I got personal confirmation. I got confirmation that other people learned it, understood it, and could enact it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
So not only did it validate the theory, but it validated that it was transferable to other people.
That's right.
Okay, that was important, and it and basically that was, you have a theory and you want to see is any good. You want some feedback from the outside world that validates your theory, your model, your methodology, that isn't just wishful thinking.
Yeah.
I wanted to get beyond wishful thinking. I was pretty sure that it was going to work, but I had no evidence.
Yeah.
I got the evidence. And I did the same thing on the internet, by the way.
Right.
I created an online learning community on the internet, also in the 90s. Now that's just text. It's not. So that is all done in terms of cognitive, verbal, but was the same. Could I still reduce to practice that people could learn in an online learning community and have fun, and that articulate the names of their emotions as they were experiencing them. So I had to introduce the ability to express emotional state in real time when all you got is keyboarding.
Right.
And so you could emote. You could emote. So instead of saying a speech act, Barry is scratching his head. You would actually write colon is scratching his head, and it'd give you a narration. Barry is scratching his head, or Barry is frowning. So you could actually emote as well as do a speech act, quote unquote, say something. And people got to the point where they'd alternate between an assertion or a question and a gesture that was written the way you would narrate it in a story. So we proved that you could do this with cognitive awareness. So for example, I'll give you another example. One summer, you get a lot of foreign people who are on holiday in the summer times. So there was this family that came in one summer, and they had a father, a mother, and two children. And the older boy, I want to say, is about 12. And he picked up one of the slightly harder puzzles on the table, and he was fidgeting with it. And I could tell that, first of all, I knew this was a relatively hard puzzle, and I figured he would struggle with it. But I just want to watch him. And finally, I said to the boy, are you vexed and perplexed? And the mother was standing right behind him. And the mother said, we're from Portugal, and I teach English as a second language to Portuguese students, but my son hasn't learned English yet. So she said, I have to translate what you just said. So she said, now say it again. I said to your son, are you vexed and perplexed? And she goes, I don't know this English word. Now, she teaches. So now I have on a computer with a projector behind me. So I go to Google Translate, and I type in vexed and perplexed in English, and I ask for the Portuguese word. And it comes back some Portuguese words. Okay. And then the mother, she nods. She now understands what I was asking her son. At the same time, I looked at these two Portuguese words. There are two or three synonyms. And I reversed it. I said, translate these back from Portuguese to English. One of them came back as angry.
Wow.
I tried that same exercise a few times over a few years. And eventually, I found that there is words in Portuguese which are really the same word. So vexed could be vejado, V-E-J-A-D-O, and perplejo, P-E-R-P-L-E-X-O. But these are uncommon words in Portuguese. The more ordinary words in Portuguese turned out to be I'm angry.
Wow, that's powerful.
So here I am, learning that if you say the name of an emotion in one language, you don't guarantee that it's understood to be the same word in another language.
Yeah. Well, as you know, there's always loss on translation, whether it's language or is that a culture, is that a verbal or non-verbal, they're all different, right? So loss of translation is one challenge, or you can say that it's a handicap, whatever you want to call that. Yeah. And the other part of it is also that you need to translate from one emotion to the other emotion. So visually, you need to translate to auditorily or kinesthetically. That translation is another challenging part as well. So the more you require the person that interact with you to do all this emotional translation as well as language translation, you're in big trouble, because the higher the expectation, the higher the failure rate will be.
Yeah. And one of the things that I realized when I was coming up with all this huge vocabulary list of names of emotions, many of which come from poetry, poetic expressions, I realized that the poetic expressions were often metaphors. And boy, oh boy, are metaphors ambiguous. I mean, one person looks at a word that's being used as a metaphor and takes it literally, which doesn't make any sense. Or another person looks at it and draws a different interpretation of the meaning of the metaphor. Metaphors are a disaster, especially across languages, because you get idioms.
Yeah.
And so I never appreciated poetry because I could never decode the bloody metaphors written by an Englishman, 120 years ago. And also the same was true of a lot of fiction, especially by authors who were not modern American authors. They would use idiomatic expressions, which I didn't know how to decode. You would have to have the expert in Dickens explain, what this phrase is supposed to mean to a modern youngster in America.
It's the same thing also as a cross-culture joke.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I understand, it's the same problem.
Or puns. So
Yeah.
I can do a pun, which an American can get, but somebody for whom English is their second language, they don't get the pun.
Yeah, exactly right.
And there's a lot of people on the internet who didn't grow up in America.
Yeah.
And they don't get American idioms.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I'm using an idiom that's only an American idiom. I have to stop and say, is that an American idiom? Would a British recognize that idiom in British English as opposed to American English? And a lot of times I have to ask them,
yeah,
what did you make of that expression? Do you even know what it meant?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it doesn't mean anything, or it means less than I thought, or something different than I thought.
Yeah.
To the other person. And they will basically just throw it away.
Wow.
They won't stop and say, you just used a word that's not in my working vocabulary. Can we stop for 5 minutes to figure out what that word means? They'll just gloss over it, and I won't get any feedback, plus or minus.
Yeah.
Sam is standing up. What does Sam standing up mean? You tell me.
He's getting tired and sitting down. His body's hurting, so he wants to stand up. This one, my guess.
I have no idea why he's standing up. But he's outstanding, but he's not outstanding in his field because he's not the duck master. If he were the duck master, he'd be outstanding in his field.
Thank you, Sam.
He's not saying a word. He's just standing there staring inscrutably. He has an inscrutable expression on his face.
So Barry, may I ask?
Yeah.
At this distance, with this vision, can you tell when I'm actually holding a thumbs up, or can you tell when I'm smiling, or can you tell when I'm bored, or can you tell when I'm fascinated?
Well, I said you had kind of a stern-looking expression on your face, the meaning of which is that I can tell you're not fascinated and engaged.
Actually, that's not true at all. I've been listening intently, and this is my resting bitch face. Okay.
So what I didn't get is that you're really, you're absolutely stock still. Your eyes aren't moving that I can see, unless maybe if I pin you, I'll be able to see more data. Where's the pin thingy?
Top right-hand corner of his
wrong place. I'm clicking the wrong.
In fact, as you've been speaking, I've been Googling theory of emotions and learning.
What'd you find?
I find no reference to you, but I do find other references.
Right.
But I've only gone through the first page and a half of Google results.
I'll tell you one way, and by the way, GPT helped me with this. The key mathematical component of
May I observe another observation, Barry?
Sorry?
May I observe another observation? And I know I'm interrupting.
Oh, go ahead.
You were interested and curious about why I was standing. I was trying to figure out whether to respond to that. That's why I was silent. You seemed to want a response, so I did offer a response. So rather than completing my response, I say something and that distracts you into another area of conversation. So you didn't actually let me have a chance to give you my entire response.
Yeah, I was processing it piece by piece. If
So
I
I'm just
if I got
observing.
it all,
I'm just
if I got
observing.
it all, I wouldn't be able to remember the whole thing.
Right. So as I'm even saying this, you're interpreting what I'm saying even before I finish what I'm saying.
Right.
Right. So I'm also saying perhaps that's an aspect, and you've been very upfront about this, Barry. So I'm not, criticizing at all. I'm saying this is one piece of evidence that maybe says that the listening aspect of it is, let's say, underactivated, but the response aspect of you is super activated. Your
Mhm.
mind is so busy on what each word means. And as soon as a word comes out, you've got it associated with 10 other ideas that are in your head, or 20, rather than letting the entire offering of my message complete and land. And then figure out, okay, so there were 5 words there that kind of triggered associations. What's the overall message? Which one should I respond to? As opposed to saying, okay, that one I get. I got 10 associations with that one. Let me go with that one. And then I don't get a chance to sort of finish the observation, which is, by the way, why I was silent. I was wondering whether you were really curious enough that I should actually offer why I'm standing.
When
So
you say let it land, let me finish that. Let it land and evaporate, because it's going to evaporate before you're done, and I'm going to catch one of the drops and hang on to it, and all the others are going to land and evaporate. And I don't know. People say, what was the last thing I said? I said, I don't know. I caught one of the things, and I'm holding it so I don't lose it, and all the others are going to evaporate.
And by the way, Barry, that's not just you. That's pretty much everybody.
Okay, there you go.
It takes more temporary space. It takes more /TMP for people to actually finish listening and then process that.
Right.
Most people get 1 or 2, memes that come across in a statement. Boy, they just say, okay, I think I know what the person's saying. I'm going to start responding to that.
Exactly.
And that's what
Exactly.
I think most people do, because that's what they can do. They're looking for something the brain can latch onto. And as soon as they find something, bam, they're going with it.
Yeah. By the way, I do the same thing in text. Yeah. No. Somebody will write a 2-paragraph text, and I will read the first 2 sentences, pause, and then I will start typing the response to that first 2 sentences. And 5 minutes later, I've hit send. Now I realize I've only responded to the first 2 sentences. I haven't even read the rest of them yet.
Yeah.
And I will sometimes take a half an hour to work my way through sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, because the first response was a paragraph about the first sentence. Even in text, yeah. I can't take the whole thing in as a gestalt whole. It's too much to put in cache memory. I got to do it piece by piece.
You mentioned before you have a very short cache memory.
Yeah. But I have a good long-term memory.
Right, got it. I noticed this also a lot. So let me tell you what happened the last few weeks. I always respond my email with thank you so much for your help, or respond or whatever it is. I noticed that people just say you're welcome, and then hit enter, or send the message without reading my say, okay, by the way, you need to fix this or whatever after I say thank you. They don't fix it because they don't read it at all. So I noticed that I would say about at least 20% of my correspondent reacted, they only read the first line. So as nowadays, I take my thank you very much to the bottom of my message instead of on top.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. A very competent person who does a lot of scientific stuff, posting scientific stuff. She pulled a pull quote out of the article, put the pull quote at the top. But in the article, the pull quote was framed around a context. And she threw away the context and did the pull quote. And the pull quote didn't make sense out of context. And so I sent her a private message saying, I was confused by your pull quote because it sounded like it was talking about something that didn't make sense. I said, I would rewrite the pull quote so that it embeds the correct context. She says, oh, thank you for that. You're right. I'm going to change it. A day later, I checked. She hadn't changed it. And this is a very competent, conscientious person.
Yeah.
And she appreciated it. Yeah, the pull quote out of context doesn't make sense.
Yeah. This is where I use the word limited bandwidth a lot. When you have limited bandwidth in terms of energy to read it, or energy, the cache memory size, or whatever you call that, it's like.
There's one person who's very good. His name is Ethan Siegel. He is an astrophysicist, cosmologist, and he publishes these every week, these really deep stories about topics in cosmology. And every once in a while, I'll stumble across a typo, an inadvertent typo. And I'll go to Messenger and I'll say, I found 3 typos, here they are. And he says, thank you very much, I'll fix them. And he almost always does. Once in a while, he'll miss fixing a typo. But he's very good because he doesn't want those typos in there, because he knows that if I stumble over them, other people are going to stumble over them too and not get the point.
Yeah.
But most people, if you point out a bit of sloppiness or typo or spelling error that I stumble over, they won't even bother to correct it. They don't care. I mean, whatever. I mean, or they're too busy. I don't know. The result is I read stuff and I go, okay, that's a typo, but I'm not sure what they meant to say. I can guess. I could say what I would have said in that context, but that doesn't necessarily mean what they had in mind. And so a lot of the conversation is sort of, gone with the wind. Doesn't stick. The stuff that sticks goes into long-term memory.
Yeah.
So if I say, my patience is dwindling, that's stuck. I saw it once, it's stuck. So there's Sam standing again. He's very, well, no, I don't have to tilt my, so he's very stiff. I mean, his arms are kind of out. He's a very stiff standing. Now, chances are that does mean something. And I could speculate. Now he's got it showing me his eyeball. Is it glazed? I don't think it's glazed, but his lid is half closed. Now it's wide open. But he's like he's staring 1,000-yard stare into the distance. 1,000-yard stare, if you can see it, is important. If the eyes are glazed, it's important. But I can't detect 1,000-yard stare. I can see he's got his eyes closed. If it's 1,000-yard stare or eyes glazed, I'll be the last person to notice. I might eventually notice, but I'll be the last person to notice.
May I offer a sideways point that may connect back to something that happened earlier in this conversation?
Okay.
When Sam Chan stood up and was asking you about mirror neurons, I did a small experiment. I yawned.
I didn't see it.
No response.
I didn't see it.
Intentionally, I yawned because most times, yawning actually provokes that stimulus in the mirror neuron.
Right. Sam,
So
did you see him yawn? And
No, I
yawn?
mean, I was so focused on you. I was so focused on 100% of my attention was on you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
When I communicate, I'm very good in one-on-one. When I have more one-to-many. Yeah.
But just for the record, Sam is often in a one-to-many situation.
Yeah, well, he's the boss of his
And
organization.
he's still effective. Okay, he's just being humble.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I do not mirror gesture. I mean, I can if I think I'm supposed to do it, but I would be very poor. That's one of the reasons I'm poor at dancing, because I can see somebody dance and I'm trying to imitate the dance. And I had a cousin who tried to teach me how to dance when we were teenagers. It was a disaster. She's standing in front of me trying to do a dance move to teach me how to dance and in sync with her, and it's a lost cause.
Hey, Barry.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
Would you be willing, or would you consider learning Tai Chi?
That's the one where you do that kind of thingy?
It's a relaxation, it's a movement, it's an exercise, it's a philosophy, it's an embodied philosophy, it's a martial art, it's a lot of different things. But you can't learn it with your head. You must feel it. You must feel your body. Otherwise, you can't learn it.
That might make it hard for me to learn.
No. It is easy to learn the basics of Tai Chi. It really is. If I tell you to stand and I show you, how to move your hips so that you can actually be more grounded, and how you feel it in the soles of your feet, and how you need to relax your shoulders, and how you need to just, not focus so much on the movement itself, but you focus on whether or not you feel grounded. and we can eventually get over some of those objections that you put yourself in your own head about how you don't feel or how you're not nonverbal. Tai Chi immediately, any martial art, yoga would do this as well. But any martial art, Tai Chi, yoga will definitely put you in your body. Actually, sex will do that too, but I can't teach that. Okay.
Question.
But Tai Chi, I think, is very good.
Question. Can you
No,
teach?
wait. So did any of that make sense to you?
I understand the concept. Reducing it to practice, I think, would be difficult. I'm
See,
78
you've
years
already got
old.
that mental block. You've already got that mental block, Barry.
I have experience. I have 78 years of experience of failing.
No, have you failed at Tai Chi though?
I don't know that I've ever tried. I mean, I've sort of done a mocking version of it, but I never actually tried it seriously. No.
Has anybody ever had a one-on-one experience with you where they're actually adjusting just ever so slightly where your elbow goes? If your elbow is up, it needs to be down. If your shoulders are high, they need to be relaxed. They need to be.
Never.
If you're holding your chest, like the American military does, you should make your chest concave. Does anybody ever had that one-on-one experience with you?
Never.
I think
Never even suggested doing it.
That's the difference that makes the difference, to borrow a phrase from Sam.
Yeah. So who's going to do that?
I would suggest, if you are curious, there, YMCAs, there are classes, and if you can't find anybody else, I would do this with you video, because I've done this. People have been in Europe and had many, many sessions with me where I just introduced them to the basics of Tai Chi. And I do this with people in California. And I used to do this ever starting since like 13, 14 years ago. I'm not a teacher, but I just like sharing some of what I've learned. And some people, stay with me for like 6 months, even though I'm not a teacher. So it is possible to get some perception, some appreciation of it. But it's really most effective if you do it one-on-one with somebody who's right in the room with you or in the park with you. There's something in my eye.
Oh.
Usually City College, YMCA will offer those kind of classes, Barry.
Yes.
Yeah, City College.
Right. The community college, yeah, exactly.
So Sam noticed when I shrugged my shoulders, because that's quite visible.
Yeah.
However, and by the way, if I shrug my shoulders too much, they get sore. And I end up at sometimes taking an ibuprofen because I can actually feel the pain because I've been, hunching my shoulders. But here's another thing. More than hunching my shoulders, I have another muscle activity that's worse than hunching my shoulders. And I do this other activity for a long time before I realize I'm doing it. Did you want to say something?
I was curious because in my mind, I feel incomplete. And I was kind of looking for a response, a willingness, yes, no.
I want to give you,
there's another distractive factor at work.
I want to give you the first thing I want to learn in managing your body that I haven't figured out how to learn. Mm-hmm. The first thing I want to learn.
Go for it.
I'm waiting for Sam to open his eyes.
I'm listening. My ears are completely open.
Okay. Besides the shoulder shrugging, which you can easily see, there's another muscle that has been very active, which I don't know if you can see or not. But I can tell you what it is.
I can see the tenseness in you, but I just don't know which muscle of your tenseness. So I don't want to be wrong about it. That's why I use the shoulder as an example because it was obvious. But I do see that there's a micro muscle movement that you have. It could be your jaw. It could be your neck.
You notice that I don't have my lips open very much. They're often closed.
Yeah, that's jaw.
Yeah, I clench my teeth all the time. Now, can you tell that I clench my teeth?
Sort of, but not obvious.
Yeah, and by the time that I've clenched them so hard and for so long that I actually have now a pain in my jaw, it's been like hours that I've been clenching my teeth. And I think I might have even mentioned this last week. I don't remember if I mentioned this, but the clenching of the teeth is sort of the subconscious, very shut up. They don't want to hear what you have to say. And the clenching of the teeth is sort of my subconscious keeping me from talking, because you got to unclench your teeth to talk. And so if I am not talking, to keep myself from interrupting, I subconsciously clench my teeth, which then causes a pain in my jaw. And if I was going to do Tai Chi, which is about this, I first want to learn how to train my cerebellum, or whatever the hell it is, to unclench my frickin' teeth.
Well, let me say this to you, if I may. You want to go first? You go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Clenching your teeth has nothing to do with learning or not learning. It's your psychology state, your nervousness, your worry, your process that create that, think of it like evolution. That clenching teeth is a way that I need to bite and digest everything that comes through my mouth so I can digest it. So it's sort of like my brain, I need to digest it. So digestion, think of it that way. So I have to clench my teeth so that when I digest everything that comes towards my mouth, I can smell it, I can taste it in my mouth. I want to digest it really well. So that's the psychology, should I say, triggers for your teeth crunching, if I may say that to you. So what you need to do is relax. It's like, before I say something, if I may, it's like, okay, take a deep breath. And noticing that you'll be easy. It's like, let me say this differently, from a different perspective. Go sideways a little bit. What's one thing that you do in your activity that you notice that you're not using your mind at all? For me, it would be like ice cream or chocolate.
Maybe when I am asleep and not in REM sleep.
Okay. That you cannot control that. I'm talking about consciously when you're awake, sitting on your butt, that, and not using your brain at all. You just like enjoy the view. Like I was the first time I go to, like Grand Canyon, looking at the Grand Canyon, it's like, take my breath away. That kind of movement, like my brain don't even process at all. Like I'm taking it in. I meet someone that you haven't seen for a long time.
Well, the only recent situations like that is I will be sitting here, not on Zoom, but watching a video or something, and I will realize that I have fallen asleep. And 20 minutes of the video have flown by, and I was fast asleep, and then something woke me up, and I realized, oh, I've been asleep for the last 20 minutes, not thinking of anything, not paying attention to anything, and not knowing anything was going on. I fall asleep sitting in this chair while stuff is available to attend to, and I'm not attending to it. I fell asleep.
Okay, that's a good one to start with. Let's what's some activity number 2 that's nothing to do with sleep, nothing to do with laying on the bed, but awake, eye open, and you catch yourself without my activity at all.
The next one might be, I don't drive very much. Occasionally, if I'm driving on a open road with no traffic, say a country road, and I don't drive that. I have driven on a country road where I have traveled several miles, and I have no idea how the hell I traveled that distance. Okay, I wasn't paying attention to the road. I wasn't thinking. Jesus, I went past my exit. I've gone past my exit. I go, what the hell? I wasn't even paying attention. How would I was even driving?
Okay.
But not often, because I don't drive very much, and I don't drive very far from home. But sometimes I found myself zoning out while driving where there's no traffic.
Got it. So if I may, we can talk about this next weekend, so that don't want to get beat to death on this one, because we gotta remember, go sideways. So we have enough conversation. Now you're aware of several things that you were not aware of before this conversation began, right? So think about it, sit on it, let it flow, enjoy whatever that comes out, didn't work out, enjoy something that worked out, enjoy whatever that you don't know what you don't know. And as soon as you can see the or feel the difference or hear the difference and make the difference, then aha, and you can report back next weekend. How's that?
I'm not sure I understood the prompt. Maybe if I read the prompt, I could process it, but I don't quite understand.
I say it in a long way and convoluted way so that I don't want your brain to process it, because if your brain you process it, you go into the processing mode at all. So take a break off this topic is my request. You can have this simple prompt.
Which topic?
The
Which topic? Which topic?
Might have to be processing unless I'm dozing off, unless I'm zoning off while driving.
Thinking about not thinking. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
That's tricky. Metacognition about not thinking. The null metacognition.
Right. Don't think about X.
Don't think about metacognition.
Yeah.
Think about not having any metacognition.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that can you catch yourself when you're not thinking?
Usually when I'm not thinking, I zoned out and time passed and I had no awareness that anything happened.
Have you ever bring some roses to your face?
I'll tell you one thing, not roses, because I don't have any flowers out here, but I will put a spice or pepper or something on food, and I'll go, I put pepper on it, let's say, or garlic. I say, I just ate that. I don't recall any aroma of pepper or garlic. I know I put it on my eggs or whatever, and I ate the food. I go, I have no recollection of ever detecting any pepper, garlic, or ketchup, or whatever the hell I put. It didn't.
Perfect. I'm so glad you give this example. This was my point. When your brain is thinking, you shut down all the other senses, my dear friend.
But even if I put the garlic and I go, can I smell the garlic?
Yep.
If I really, really try hard, I can say, oh yeah, there's a bit of an essence of garlic there. If I really get really close to it. But if
Let me remind you, you cannot smell garlic through your brain's activity. It doesn't work. The brain is not designed to smell. It's your nose, the smell senses.
That's part of your brain. Actually, the sensors that are in the nose are actually literally part of the brain, aren't
So
they?
I'm talking about the antenna. You need to activate the antenna. Now, obviously, the signal goes to the brain, but without the you're not going to get that sense.
They have to send a signal. The aromatic sensors have to send a signal somewhere.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, there is a garlic flavor in the air. And
So
I mean,
figure this out. How come your garlic, you bought them, they're fresh, they definitely have some smell. You may not need a scientific instrument to measure the smell of it, but definitely there's a smell. How come you're not smelling it? Let me try.
Well, it's not fresh garlic. It's the garlic pepper, the garlic powder.
But it still have smell.
Should have.
Yeah. And how come you're not smelling it?
Well, it's possible that it's stale, but if I open it up and get my nose in it, I can find out whether it really is stale or not. Where you're shaking your head and smiling.
You're not letting the signal through to your brain, Barry. You're not appreciating that the antenna are firing.
How do I know they're firing?
Because you're a human being.
But it doesn't mean that the neural networks are wired up to send signals.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
How do I know that?
Because your nervous system is not faulty. You don't have that dementia yet. So those signals are traversing your body and your neural network.
So how come I can't pull up a vocabulary word that I know, but I can't pull it up?
Because you're busy thinking about the word and not receiving the signal.
The signal I want to receive is the name of the word that I'm trying to use.
No. The signal you first have to allow in is the one coming from your sensor, which is your nose.
Okay.
So you're too busy thinking of the word without really getting the signal first. It appears. I may be making too many presumptions.
Well, I mean,
Ask you to consider that.
you can put a sample of an odorant in front of me that's real. It's the real molecules are there, and I'll go, I have no idea what that is. I don't
But you're too busy
recognize the
trying to
smell.
figure
I
out-
can tell there is a smell, but I don't recognize.
You're trying to name it before you experience it.
I don't know that I can tell you if it's pleasant or unpleasant, let alone what it is.
No. You don't need to value it. You just need to experience it before you think of word associations.
Right. So if I get the null value, what do I do with the
Not
null
a
value?
no value. There is a real signal there.
Well, it could be below
There's a real
detection.
signal there.
I mean, I know that I miss a lot of stuff.
See, just like your IO ports, you got port, 489 or whatever it is. Okay, that's hooked up to your nose, but you're not paying attention to it right now. You got to let that, enter your buffer and then read from it. But right now, you're not even reading from it.
You know what this coffee smells like? It's odorless. I just brewed this coffee this morning. It's totally odorless. It's no different. No, I don't get any difference between this coffee is totally odorless.
Hey, Barry, if any food at all tastes good and smells good, then your nose is still working.
I'll tell you not a funny story, true story. My dad lost his sense of smell. He could not enjoy food because it tasted like cardboard. And in his last 20 years of life, he had almost no sense of smell. Must be genetic. I don't must be, but probably is. My dad lost his sense of smell in the second half of his life.
Wow.
Hey, Barry, can I also ask you one more time?
Sure.
Did you review that video from 2 weeks ago, the one where Sam says you got angry and I sort of pushed you a little bit? I'm asking whether or not you did. I'm also asking if you would be willing to review this video.
I don't know that I even had the URL to find the video.
Are you subscribed to my channel on YouTube?
The Sam Han channel?
Yeah, SSY Han. Because if you get the notifications when I publish these videos,
I don't think. Let me see if I can even find your channel.
See, again, we're onto a distracted thought. I'm just
yeah, but the thing is, if I don't respond to this now, it's going to be evaporating, in 10 seconds.
Okay.
What's it called? SSY?
SSY Han on YouTube. But I'll send you the link to the one 2 weeks ago if I can find it. I'll definitely send you the link to this one once it's uploaded. Okay. It's just a request. If you'd be willing to look at it, I think you'd get a lot out of it.
This is the one that has the 3 teardrops in a circular pattern that says "I, we, world."
Yes, that's me.
Let me see if I'm how do I tell if I'm subscribed? Where does that show up?
Click on one of the videos.
Okay, so the black button that says subscribe, it's black and it says subscribe. I should click.
That means you're not subscribed. So you click on that one and you'll now get notification.
Now it says I've added you as a subscriber.
Exactly.
So now the question is, are these videos from these Saturdays and Sundays part of them?
Yes, they are.
And they'd be under videos? Oh, there they are.
Yeah. Anyway, there's like 800 or so now, and they're all
okay.
All the last 5-6 years are there.
The answer is no. I was never subscribed, and I never went looking for it, and now I'm subscribed, and I can see that there's tons of these videos with dates on them. All right, now I got to get back to the other.
Anyway, I'm just suggesting, it's only a request, that in particular this video, I think would very, very ear-opening and possibly eye-opening and possibly mind-opening if you would review it again.
So this one and 2 weeks ago, what was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
I pushed you and you got angry.
Well, let me see. What would be the date?
I don't know. I don't know. I thought
Today's
it was more.
14. Today's 14, so it was the last day of the month.
I thought it was further back than that, but I'll check.
I think it's 2 weekends ago.
Okay.
Well, there's April 29th.
Yep, that one. The Sunday. It was a Sunday.
Then, well, oh, Sunday. That's the one that says Saturday.
Oh no, sorry. Did I maybe?
It
was Saturday or Sunday. I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, April 30th is Sunday. That's 13 days ago. Maybe that's the one. I don't know. It's really hard to search these videos because there's really no functional search engine that lets you find stuff in them that I know
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
yet. It's been how many years, Sam? It's really next to impossible to search these videos out of hundreds of them and find the passage in one of them that you have in mind.
Too bad, Barry. You're just gonna have to watch all of them.
Forget it. I mean, I'm not going to live that long. And I would fall asleep after the first 5 minutes.
And I would take offense that you fell asleep watching these videos.
I could fall asleep watching my own. I have played back some of my own talks.
I'm just kidding, Barry.
Fallen asleep watching my own bloody talks. I did a talk on Lexington Computer Technology Group back in December on my research on emotions and learning. And it's up on YouTube because they put all of them up on YouTube. So I wanted to go back and watch it, which I did. One person put a comment in it. And they said, good talk. And that one person was Anne-Marie Lamont. I didn't even bother to look at the number of impressions. I should look and see how many people even looked at it. I know I looked at it. That's one. Anne-Marie looked at it because she put a comment on it. That's two. Beyond that, I would be surprised if more than half a dozen people even looked at it.
I watched it 3 times, just to let you know that.
Did you?
I
The
did
one from
watch it.
Lexington Computer and Technology?
I watched it 3 times.
But you didn't write any comments.
I didn't write any comment. I don't have a habit of writing comment because I'm still processing it.
Okay. This is the problem, is I have no idea what my audience is,
Yeah.
whether I'm reaching any audience, whether the ones that I reach are absorbing anything, learning anything, gaining or losing or appreciating or deprecating. I basically get zero, I'll say zero, but negligible feedback.
Right. That's why I suggest the museum volunteer or the child daycare volunteer, library, read a story, all that, because the more interaction you have in physical present, it makes a huge difference, because that will be your basic. It's sort of that you need soil to plant the seed. You can't run away from that.
Need soil to plant a seed. By the way, I should tell you that occasionally I didn't transform the phoneme into the word. And I can pause on it in context of the rest of the words and figure out that, oh, it was soil, was what you said. Often I will pause to try to get a word out of a phoneme and finally give up. Because meantime, the words keep coming.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I like reading is because if I get stuck on a word, I can stare at it before I read on. In spoken language, it just keeps coming.
Yeah.
If I can't decode a word, recognize a phoneme and turn it into a word, I've lost the meme. I lost the noun, the subject.
Yeah.
And more words have gone by and they've evaporated.
Yeah. Have you ever heard expression called verbal communication create dependency?
Verbal communication create dependency. Yeah. That doesn't even parse as a diagrammable phrase. Creates. Oh, that's the verb. Verbal communication creates dependency. No, I've never heard that sentence before. And I'm not sure if I know what it means. I could maybe think about it and figure out what kind of dependency it's referring to, because dependency doesn't have any adjectives.
So if, for example, if I tell you to do something verbally, you got to come back and check with me again and again and again to make sure you're doing it right. But
that
if
kind
we
of,
give
that
you
kind of dependency,
yeah,
I never would have guessed that kind of dependency.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It could be a friend telling you to do something, expecting. I sent you expectation verbally, and if the expectation is met or not, it depends on me to decide.
That I get. Verbal communication creates expectation. I get that. And I also get that breach of expectation is very, very common.
No, I'm talking about dependency. It's not about expectation. It depends on the verbal. It depends on the person. The person has the authority. The person that owns the authority and have the authority and have the control, because the verbal communication create the dependency of whoever to give the verbal command.
I'm lost. An authority figure gives a instruction, a command,
Yep, a command, an expectation, a communication.
and then it means that they are depending on the target to follow the instruction.
The target is always depending on the person that give that verbal command.
Oh, the agent, the robot is depending on the instructor to tell the robot what to do.
But it cannot be robot because robot would take it, whatever the language is, translate into text already. So I'm talking about human to human.
But yeah, but it's an instruction, so that basically turns the human into a robot. Metaphorically speaking, the human does not have autonomy and free will. The human is being told to do a task that's defined by the task giver. The taskmaster is giving a task to a subordinate.
You know how we listen to a command and forget what it says? I have to go back and check with the source to see if what I'm doing is the right matching what you're expecting, because I don't fully understand or fully decode the whole structure of the sentence.
Yeah, I get that if I'm a taskmaster and I give a task to a delegate, that I have very low expectation that the delegate will understand and execute the task. I have very low expectation or confidence that being a taskmaster causes the taskee to execute the task. Very low.
If I flip it around and give you in the text format, then the dependency is gone.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Because it's in black and white. If I give you instruction in black and white.
In writing, not verbally.
Yeah, not verbally.
You write an instruction verbally, in writing, that's like an instruction written in a program to the computer. It's actually in some syntax that has some semantics.
Right.
The computer theoretically should decode and execute as written. And I also know that if I write a piece of code for a computer, very likely it's munged either in the writing or the decoding or the meaning or the semantics, or somewhere along the line, what comes out of the computer does not reflect what I thought I had asked it to do or told it to do. More often than not, a piece of code doesn't execute as intended or as desired.
That's a different set of problems. Now I can blame it on the taskmaster giving the wrong instruction.
Yeah.
But when you give it verbally that was not recorded, you cannot do that.
If it was not recorded. I have asked people to play a role that they volunteer to play. Somebody volunteers to play a role. I'll give you an example. Toastmasters, this is a group that practices how to give speeches and whatnot. We now have hybrid meetings so that some people are in person in the room and some people are remote. And because there are people remote, we have webcams that scan the room so that you can see the people at home can see the people in the room. We have a guy who is very enthusiastic about learning to do the technology for hybrid meetings. He brings a webcam on a tripod and he wants to, be the operator of it. And I give him an instruction to make sure that he executes the process of getting the person who's speaking on the camera, zoomed in at the right level so that the people at home can see the person who's speaking. And I explained to him the mechanics of using Zoom, the affordances of Zoom, and the affordance of his camera to do that. And he understands that that's what he's supposed to do. But he flubs it up, unbelievably flubs it up, time after time. And I know that no matter how carefully I explain to him the objective and the details of executing the objective, that he will fail to execute them. I know that because he almost never does.
The question is, did you give him the instruction in writing or is it verbally?
It's verbally.
Yeah, that's my point.
But here's the thing. He will watch me do it. So when it's my turn to run the system, he's over my shoulder, very intently watching what I'm doing. Now, I'll tell you a funny story. Here we have Zoom, okay, and there's 5 different things. Now, if I have security. So if I do this, I'm going to spotlight. Can I do? Yeah, I'm going to spotlight. Did it work? Yeah, I just spotlighted Sam.
Right.
Because in the context of the meeting, Sam was just called on to speak, and I've spotlighted him so that everybody at home can see Sam speaking when it's his turn. Now, when Sam is done speaking, I'm going to remove the spotlight. So I go remove spotlight. Okay. Now, Fred will be looking over my shoulder while I spotlight the person who was called on to speak. And he's looking over my shoulder as I remove the spotlight and switch it to somebody else who's speaking. And he will watch me do this. But he doesn't know what's going on up here, how I understood what I was supposed to be doing and figured out where to put my mouse, what to wait, what to click on, and when and where to put my mouse to. He doesn't understand the calculus that I'm doing up here. He only sees that I put the mouse someplace and I clicked it. That doesn't teach him how to do it.
Perfect. Good example. I love this example. That's enough. I got it.
I explained to him. Now, if I were instructing, like Sam was instructing Tai Chi, I'd say, Fred, I'm going to put my mouse on this 3 dots, and I'm going to go down to spotlight. I'm going to wait till the person's called on, because I know on the J, then I'm going to click it. Okay. I can't do that in the meeting, because if I'm speaking out loud to Fred, I'm disturbing the meeting. I have to be doing, I'm the video director. I have to be silent. So he's looking over my shoulder, watching me do it. Outside the meeting, I'm telling him what the procedure is. And between the verbal explanation and watching me do it, he learns nothing.
Got it.
Because he never does it.
Right. So remember, when you say something, that when people say something, you got to catch it and you got to get to it. Otherwise, you lose it, evaporate it.
So I tell him,
how does that apply to this scenario? How does that apply to the thing they just told me?
The point is that I understand that if I give somebody a verbal instruction, that's not going to work. If I let them watch me do it and have them imitate me, that's not going to work, because the important part of what I'm doing is going on inside of my head, not where I'm moving my hand on the mouse. That's the least of it. The most of it is up here. So he doesn't get the data because he can't read my mind. And if I give him the verbal description of what's going on up here, that doesn't land either. And I tell him, if you want to have the affordance of zoom, pan, and tilt, electronic zoom, pan, and tilt, which he wants, I say, first of all, download the Logitune application that gives you electronic zoom, pan, and tilt. Practice, practice, practice. And then practice, practice, practice. And then the next day, practice, practice. He installs it, doesn't practice. He comes in, he has no idea how to use it. I tell him, practice, practice, practice at home. It's going to take you hours to learn to do this. He says, I haven't got time. Can't do it. Go ahead, Sam.
What was the last suggestion that Sam Chan made?
Explain how this works.
No. He asked, could you see how this evaporation would apply to this other individual? That's what I heard.
It's not even, the raindrops never even landed.
Yes, but you were talking about how raindrops land or don't land for you and evaporate. But
yes,
Sam pointing out, could you apply the same model to this Fred that you're trying to teach?
Could I apply it?
Yes.
Well, first of all, I have enough experience to predict that the instruction is not going to land.
Does that resonate? Does that sound like what Sam was suggesting? Am I recalling correctly or not?
Then you're going to have to ask Sam the question.
Let me say this one more time. You know how you explained to us about when you listen to someone talking, you got to zoom in on the first thing that showed up. So before unless you catch it right now, you will get evaporated, right?
Right.
So that story, I want you to think of that story. How would that story, that whatever that logic, that scenario is, that issue is, apply to the Fred's story just told? Put that filter on.
So I would expect that unless Fred demonstrated back to me that he can execute that guidance, if he doesn't then and there exercise the instruction and demonstrate that he understood it and can enact it, then very likely he didn't capture it or practice it. Well, he clearly didn't practice
Okay.
it.
Got it. Let me chunk it down a little bit, bring it down a little bit more. Would you think that he listened to your instruction, all the instruction you're giving him, he can only catch the first one, and then the rest of the instruction after the second sentence or after the first sentence, maybe is all evaporated as well?
My expectation is he didn't even get the first one to test, that none of it landed,
Got it.
that it was just noise in the air.
That's right.
I'll give you an evidence of that. He had set up his little webcam, his Logitech webcam, on a tripod on the table, and he hooked it up to his laptop. Now, in hooking it up to his laptop, he has to choose the webcam as opposed to the built-in camera on the bezel. Okay, and so now the webcam is showing something in the room, some part of the seating of the room. Now, when he is called upon to speak on his own, he would have to switch from the webcam to the camera on the laptop so we can see his face. So he's called upon to play a role at some point in the meeting, but he doesn't switch the camera. He keeps it on the webcam, which is pointing somewhere else in the room. So there's no picture of him. So what I do, I have my own other webcam on a tripod. So I jump up and I go over and I zoom in on Fred from the distance so that people can see him talking, and I spotlight my webcam because he didn't turn on his webcam on his laptop. So after the meeting is over, I go over to see if I can instruct him on that element, that he can turn on the webcam on his camera as I did. When I was called on, I switched to the webcam on my laptop so they could see me talk, because most of the time I've got my tripod camera going, okay, instead. So he says, well, there was a problem with this webcam. It was disabled and it doesn't work. And I said, Fred, you see down here where it says video and there's a little caret? Click the caret. So he has to find the caret. Takes him a little while. He finds it. I said, now do you see it has a choice of two cameras, the Logitech webcam and the internal camera? I said, yeah. I said, you see, one of them's got a check mark. That's the one out. That's the webcam. Click the other one that says internal. So he fits with that. And finally he gets that. Now it switches the camera, but the video is X'd out at the bottom. Now, before I notice that, the person sitting next to him is looking over the shoulder, and she says to him, you have to turn that camera on. She gets it in a fraction of a second. It takes me a while to figure out why the camera didn't come on. So she tells him, well, you have to turn on the camera too. He thinks it's disabled. So then she directs him and he turns it on. And now we see his face. I'm going, holy shit. Knowing that you got to not only select the camera, but actually turn it on and tilt the laptop so that it's, that you're sitting in front of it. Okay. And this is fundamentals. And he wants to be a cameraman for, hybrid videos with zoom and pan and tilt and electronic and all that. This is driving me crazy.
Listen to your 25 years of museum experience. You have all sorts of patience and all sorts of experience and feedback system in that 25 years, 3 minutes worth of your time. Can you imagine that? And yet somehow with Fred, you are having such a challenging time, shall I say.
He is the CEO of a company. It's a janitorial office cleaning company. He's retired, but he made a lot of money as a CEO. He buys a very expensive laptop, a very expensive modern Logitech webcam, okay? And he's got the latest operating system and he has no idea how to drive a car. I mean, he's got a Cadillac, he can't drive it. And I'm going, he's spending all this money. I'm using a 5-year-old, obsolete laptop and a 14-year-old obsolete camcorder. And I've got this thing jury rigged and it's working fine. And he's got the latest equipment, which is very expensive, and he can't use it. And I'm going, how am I I don't know how to fix this.
This is the same feeling I have, that you're so smart, you can't smell the garlic and you cannot smell the coffee problem. Same problem. You're so good in one senses, but you're terrible in the other senses. He's so much money, but he doesn't learn how the technology works. So
He can buy something and can't use it.
Yep. But all he has is money, right? All he has is money, right? So that senses, think of money as a one senses, right?
Now the lady sitting next to him he brought her as a guest. The one who said, Fred, click the button to turn your camera on. The one who said that. She had come at his invitation. Why? Because we have a PolySync 40 speakerphone that picks up the people's speech as a speakerphone. And he thought it wasn't good enough. So he asked this lady who works for a company called Grandstream to bring a better speakerphone, to show us a better one that's got a slightly longer pickup range. What she brings, well, it is a speakerphone, but you know what it really is? It's a $750 SIP voice conference bridge. You know what a conference bridge is, right?
Yeah.
She brings a $750 conference bridge that has about a 5-meter pickup range instead of a 3-meter pickup range. And what it's there for is that in the central headquarters of some company that's got field offices all over the world, once a week, all the field offices dial in with VoIP, SIP, to this conference bridge so that they can have a huddle with the headquarters. And she brings in this conference VoIP bridge, 12-party bridge, because he thinks that the pickup of our little PolySync 40, which is $200, doesn't quite reach the size of the table. And at the end of the meeting, he says, my friend B here now wants to show you this thing. And she says, you don't need this thing. What you got, this little PolySync 40 is pretty much the same thing. She knows that what he brought her in for is a waste of everybody's time.
Yeah.
And she says, you're right. You don't need a SIP voice conference bridge. You guys are using Zoom and your speakerphone is adequate.
Yeah.
So she instantly realizes what it took me, a week of emails with Fred to figure out what the hell is he talking about. He gives me a model number of a Grandstream, some model number. I research, I find out, oh, this is a 12-party VoIP bridge. Why the hell does he think we need a 12-party VoIP bridge? And she doesn't know what our meeting. So he brings her to the meeting and she says, oh, these are people sitting around a table having a hybrid Zoom meeting.
The reason he bought the bridge is because he have found a great salesperson that can make good commission on the bridge.
She does not sell them. She works for the company that makes them.
Yeah, that's
but
what
the company that makes them actually doesn't sell them.
She got it for free?
No. She works for the company that designs and manufactures them, but you cannot buy them from the manufacturer. You got to buy them from a third-party vendor.
Yeah, so I say there's a good salesperson that sells it or whatever, good marketing there, whatever.
But she says, you don't need this. You are not a company that has a headquarters where people are calling in over voice over IP and you need a bridge.
Yeah.
You don't need this for $750 just to gain an extra meter of the huddle in the room. Yeah,
I see this problem everywhere, Barry. Is what I call incompetency. It's incompetent.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Here's Fred, very enthusiastic, has a completely bonkers notion of what the technology does, imagines that it does something that we want, doesn't do what we want or need, does something else, and what we want or need we have, but you got to actually know how to use it.
Yeah.
I have a car, but I don't know how to turn on the ignition.
Yeah.
And I'm going, this is dry. He is. Oh, here's the other thing. So at the beginning of the meeting, people turn on their laptop who come to the meeting in person. When you turn on your laptop in person in the room, you want to mute your speaker and your microphone because we're using the speakerphone. And every time somebody starts up Zoom and they don't mute the laptop speaker and they don't mute the microphone, you get feedback. And you get the squeal or the echo. Fred believes that this VoIP speakerphone is going to fix that problem.
Yeah, potentially.
No,
they have to call in. They have to call in with the voice.
the thing is that if somebody turns on the microphone and the speaker on their laptop, the speakerphone can't fix that problem.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not in the loop.
Yeah.
Fred thinks that this thing is going to fix the problem. And I go, you don't have a mental model of the system. You're imagining that this device, which has nothing to do with that issue, is going to fix that. And I'm going, how do I explain to him the model of the complex system such that what he imagines isn't the fix? The fix is when you turn on your laptop, make sure that you mute your speaker and your microphone. That's all. No more technology is going to fix them forgetting to turn off their speaker and turning off their microphone. And I'm going, it's not that complicated.
I got two types of customer, if I may say it this way. One, I will explain how things work. And the other one says, do it my way if you want it to work. No explanation.
And I mean, Fred is probably about my age. He's probably around 70s or maybe even his 80s. And I go, okay, it's probably cruel to say he's learning disabled. And my other friend says, no, it's probably not an accurate characterization. He doesn't have the ability or the aptitude to learn what he needs to learn to do what he believes he could have done. And how do you tell somebody, you want to be a jazz trumpeter? I'm sorry, you don't have the aptitude. You don't know music. You don't know fingering. You're not going to be a jazz trumpeter, even though you'd love to be Satchmo. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have how do you tell somebody they don't have the aptitude to do what they need to learn, practice, to be any good at what you would like to do? How do you tell them that?
I actually don't tell them that. I tell them to do it in front of me. And then just, it's like you see you're watching the kids who play their puzzle, they get stuck. You don't tell them what to do, right? What do you do? Yeah. You watch them, right?
Yeah, you watch them and you give them a bit of a hint. And the hint is basically, do you see this?
Yes.
You point them to the thing that they're not noticing. And you say,
that's right.
What can you figure out by looking at that?
Yeah.
That would help you get past the stumbling block.
Yeah, and that's what you need to do with Fred.
So when B Chen is sitting next to him and she sees that he successfully switched from the one camera to the other, but then it's turned off, she spots right at the bottom, the camera's got the little, whatever the
crossover, yeah,
whatever the stop video thing.
Yeah, the slash.
The slash. Got the slash. And now I would say, oh, slash, I got to turn it on. He doesn't know that there's a slash on the video. Okay. And she says, go down there to the video. You see that where it says a slash? Click that and turn the camera on. Oh, I never knew you could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you throw up your hands and you go, this is exasperating.
Well, what's the difference between that and the kids that play the puzzle?
The kids who play the puzzle are eager to succeed and learn and enjoy learning.
So is Fred.
Well, I'm not so sure.
Well, you have a judgment or wrong on that subject. He eagerly want to learn. The thing that I found the most of it, all the 40 years of coaching someone over the phone in thousands and thousands of customers, is that I need to make sure that I'm not intimidating them or make them in the defensive mode or put them feel that they are inferior. I need to encourage them like you play with the kids. That's why I use the kid example as again and again remind you.
I'll give you two more examples, both with Fred and another guy. Before we had the second camera, when we only had the laptop, and so you had to stand in front of the laptop that had also the microphone, otherwise it wouldn't be seen. Somebody's sitting in front of the microphone, and they're called on to give their talk. So they call on to give their talk, and they get up to give their talk. Now they're giving their talk like this. I go, oh my God, they didn't realize that their laptop is now pointing at their belly. So I go over and I tilt the laptop if I can, you know. And then when they sit back down, and I was like, and I got to get up and go over. So now these are people who aren't looking at the monitor, you know, aren't in tune with reality. Their antenna about the technology is not non-existent. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I get them on camera without interrupting, you know, saying cut, you know, aim the camera or aim, you know. I'm going, how do I do this without interrupting their train of thought of giving a talk, and they're off camera? One week, a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't there because I had a conflict. So I said, okay, you're going to be on your own this Thursday, the 27th. And the guy records the, you know, the sessions, just like Sam records these. I went back yesterday and looked at it. Now, the guy who was recording, he knows about spotlighting. He knows it exists because he sees me do it every week. And he's the guy recording the video. He's the guy who's actually owning and running the Zoom session. So he's got the camera on the person who's going to gavel the sergeant at arms, is going to gavel the meeting. And he's there. The guy gavels, this is 12 o'clock, meeting's coming to order, blah, blah, turn off your cell phones, this, that, and the other. And now I'm going to hand it over to the Toastmaster who's sitting next to him. It takes him 4 minutes to realize that he has to unspotlight the sergeant at arms and spotlight the Toastmaster. So we're looking at the sergeant at arms who's just sitting there and listening to the voice of the Toastmaster, and we're not seeing her. Finally, he figures out, oh, I didn't do the spotlighting switcheroo. And all through the meeting for an hour, the spotlighting is very erratic. Sometimes he gets it right. Sometimes he doesn't get it right. I'm going, he has been watching me do spotlighting now since last summer.
Yeah.
And he knows about it.
Yeah.
And somehow or other, he never, even though he's in attendance, and he's not a stupid guy, he couldn't enact the role with any facility. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, anybody in this session could be the spotlighter if we needed a spotlighting function. You don't have to be in the room. Anybody who's on the meeting can be delegated co-host, can be spotlighting. People could have been practicing. I said, it's my turn. Let me be the spotlighter for today's meeting and learn it and practice it. Nobody wanted to volunteer. And nobody learned it, including the guy who's running the meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sam. I see you wanted to say something.
Here you are, a learning expert. And the feedback so far you've given me that you fail to teach them, you fail to get them to do whatever you need them to learn. What's wrong with the picture here?
They're not motivated. Basically,
it's their fault.
Barry knows how to do this. Barry is familiar with the technology. He knows about computers. He knows about Zoom. He knows about TV studio technology and audio. Just let Barry do it. And, oh, I never thought if Barry's not there someday, what's going to happen? We don't have a substitute teacher. You know, if the substitute teacher can't make it, you know, who are you going to bring in? You know.
Remember the topic we talked about yesterday about the jury duty? You're telling the judge about this system doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
And they dismissed me. And they dismissed me.
So the learning process didn't work because the learning expert could not get the student to learn what they need to learn, if I may. So that ponder about that.
The person who was arrested can't learn to be a good citizen.
Yeah.
That his behavior is getting worse and worse and worse each time he goes through the mill in the court. He gets arrested, and his recidivism is getting worse.
That's right. Yeah. So is Fred, so is Fred, so is whoever else that you try to teach them. So I'm just reminding you in that sense, I want you to compare the difference and make the difference.
3 people in Toastmasters are improving. They understand the requirement to learn, they do their homework, and they get better observably, measurably, week by week by week. They get better at it.
Thank you.
3 people are getting better. The rest of them are, for example, the person who's a remote, and they're
Right.
called on to speak. Now they're normally muted because there's noise in their house. Okay,
Right.
so they say, so they call on somebody to play a role, and they say, "Oh, and don't forget to unmute." And then they can't remember how to unmute, and they click it twice, and so we keep losing time because people can't even know to mute and unmute their microphone when they're called on to speak. And this is we've been doing now. We had the COVID lockdown for 3 years. We've been doing Zoom for 3 years with Toastmasters, and people still have trouble muting and unmuting or tilting their laptop so that you don't just see the top of their head. I go, if they can't even get connected to the meeting and get their microphone, correctly operating and unmuted, how the hell are you going to learn to be a cameraman in a TV studio, format? I mean,
Well, that reminds me of the Torah that we were talking yesterday about Sarah, right? Whatever will be, will be.
yeah. What will be?
Yeah.
So what will be is blundering, and blundering will be unbelievably the blunders that people can make. You could never have foreseen half the blunders. How could somebody make a blunder that's so unbelievable that you didn't even anticipate it? Sam just put up sunk your tongue out, and what is that emoticon? One eye open, one eye closed, and a sticky. What does that even mean?
Sam can explain.
What is the name of that emotional expression?
Actually, the point is, these tangents go on forever. These distractions sort of take you down these little alleyways so that the main, let's say the point that was made 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 points ago, remain open. I think I've alluded to that in the past. I was asking,
so give me a list of the 8 points.
I'm just wondering whether or not you were willing to review this video at a later opportunity, because you'll notice that Sam and I have been trying to address points, and then a word that is in the message impinges on your consciousness, and then you go down that road.
Yeah, stumbling block. You mentioned a stumbling block that I know for me is
Not necessarily stumbling block. Not necessarily stumbling block. It doesn't even have to be a stumbling block. It's just something that you have some association with, and that association then triggers.
Yeah, but I would call it a stumbling block. I basically interrupt when I hit a stumbling block. No, you don't think so?
No. It's
What
just
do you think it is? What's the name of it? It's not a stumbling block.
It's just an association that you choose to go down.
Why is that not a stumbling block? Why am I choosing it if it's not a stumbling block?
The stumbling block is that your brain is so active that it forgets what it was working on before because it's got this new shiny idea. And you're running with this new shiny idea, so you forget the point that you were working on, that we were focused on.
And you don't think it's a stumbling block?
It ends up being a stumbling block, but it by itself is not a stumbling block.
See, I think that's where you have the horse before the cart.
No, the end result is the first issue you brought up. Remember you said you have two problems, or somebody said you have 2 problems?
Yeah.
You remember that starting point? We've been getting distracted from that.
One was antenna. I'm remembering. One was antenna. And what was the second one? Setting the bar too high. See, when you say 2 items, I have to refresh my memory. Now, it takes me about, 10 seconds to say, okay, one was antenna, one was bar too high. Okay, now I'm back in sync with you. Now, please continue. But if you run ahead of me when I lose synchronization, I'm lost.
Yeah.
I want to stay synced. And if I'm going too fast for you, then you have to slow me down so that I can go back to where you lost sync. If we lose sync, either of us loses sync with the other one's running ahead of the other. And this whole thing of interruption is staying in sync.
Right. Yeah. I think the way people talk about that is we're talking past each other.
Too fast for each other, right? Or past, yes.
So now we have a tool to allow you to sync all you want. It's called the recording. So if I may suggest that this allow you to do the syncing all you want. By the way, also the other thing is that sometimes you can watch the video in a faster mode, like 3x the speed, and sometimes you can watch it slow it down to like half the speed, it will also help you to digest it differently as well.
But I'm watching the video out of sync with the real-time recording. So if I watch it a week later and I say, oh, this is where we had a disconnect.
That's
now
right.
I found a disconnect that I didn't realize was, now I got to go back in a future meeting and say, here, 3 weeks ago was a disconnect that we now have to go back and patch up.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this is snowballing.
Yeah.
These disconnects are snowballing.
Right. No, don't get snowball. Just focus on one topic at a time. And then because you can now chunk it down, you can cut this video down to one small chunk.
If I focus on one, I'm not focusing on the other 9 of the 10.
Which is okay.
You can only work on one topic at a time.
I know,
cannot-
and that's the point. So the point is that if there's 9 things in the air, I can't juggle 9 things in the air.
We have
8 of them are gonna
another
fall on the floor.
we have another 45 years to do this, remember?
I know when I'm 78 years old, I don't have another 45 years. I'm sorry, my dad made it to 84. I think my grandfather, his father, made it to, I think, 91.
And
I
you
had
should
a
be able to make it
grandmother.
with the advancement that you have today compared to what your dad and your grandfather did. You should be able to outlast your grandfather easily.
Fidelity, which has my retirement, and they have all the, what do you call it, the
Actuarial tables.
actuarial. They think I'm going to make it to at most 94.
Okay.
It basically said at age 94, when we think you're going to die, this will be what's left in your estate.
So you
Right.
got 16 years.
They think that when I die, in my 90s, I might have about $100,000 left in my estate. Now, you know that an annual salary of a person today is, you need about $100,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means we're on to another topic.
Depend where you live.
The
If you
topic
live
is,
in
are you going to
Boston-
live? Are you going to live for 115 years? No. At most, I'm going to live to a little ways into my 90s if nothing goes haywire.
May I? May I?
Yeah.
Sam was making a point that, hey, you got some time to deal with the other 9 issues. If you focus on one first, you got some time. And then we got distracted again into whether or not you can live 16 versus 25 years. Or what.
He
Do you
brought up
see that?
another topic. He brought up 11th topic.
Eric, do you see it though? Do you see that? It's been
I
brought
can-
up several times today.
I can see the branching into multiple topics, and it's snowballing, and we never complete any one branch.
It doesn't have to, right? It doesn't have to.
But then they're all in the air. I can't keep all those branches in the air. I don't
So
have that
out of
many.
those 9, is one more, let's say, intriguing to you? Is one more impactful to your life that you would perhaps want to change in some way?
Well, I could maybe, if I had listed them, rank order them from the top to the bottom. If I thought about them, to rank order them.
Bingo. Bingo.
But I have to have the list, and then I have to sit down and rank order them.
You should be able to use the transcribe button on the YouTube to do a transcribe and copy and paste the text.
I've tried that. The otter on these systems is not that good. It isn't. I've tried it. I've tried to say, Otter, give me the text of this passage. And I go, what the hell? That's not the word he said. The fuck is that? And then
Did
I
you
got to
see
go
that
back and listen. I got to go back and listen to it and try to figure out, what did he really say that Otter couldn't get the phoneme? Because Otter does better than I am at converting phonemes to words. If Otter can't convert a phoneme to word, there's a good chance I can't either, unless it's a name that I know. Go ahead, Sam.
Can I also, because I'm about to leave soon, I just want to say, Sam, it awes me that you love Barry so much that you would actually have this conversation with him.
Thank you.
It is awesome.
You're welcome.
I'm really, really impressed with how open you are to what we are, Sam and I are offering.
I'm pretty much aware of my deficits, and I'm not ashamed to admit them because they're deficits. I've struggled with some of them, openly struggled with them all my life. As soon as
So
I
what
figured out what they were.
Don't look at them as deficits. They are who you are. They are your gifts because that's the way your life was lived. So if you can think of it as, this is how you are. Now, what else would you like to add to that arsenal or tool set or, capability set.
Yeah, what's the next thing in this rank ordered list to spend another month or two on before I master it to the point where I can move the next? See, if I try to juggle three at once, I'm going to juggle nothing.
Yeah, so pick one.
Well, that was the point. I want to pick the one that's most realistic now to make net progress in a reasonable amount of time. There's one that may be more important, but I don't know it's going to take me 10 years to master it. Well, I'm probably not going to make any progress on that one.
May I
One I
suggest
can
one?
master in 2 weeks. It's not that important, but the balance between importance and time is a good trade-off.
May I suggest one?
Sure.
Wait 3 seconds before you respond to what you heard. And in that 3 seconds, see if you can remember the path that was the topical path that was traversed in order to get to where you are, and whether or not the latest distraction is a tributary on the river that you want to go down, or you want to stay on the main river.
Let me bring up
Now, that's a metaphor that may be difficult.
I'm going to bring up the transcript if I can find it. Where the hell is it? In order to do that, I'm going to bring up the transcript and look at the words. Where's the transcript? I can't find it.
Okay, all right.
No caption.
Oh, there it is. Show
Bottom.
captions.
Right.
Show captions. Okay, now
So view full transcript.
captions is turned on. Now
Show
I lost it again. Okay, now I want to show
full.
transcript. Okay, there it is. My
Yeah.
transcript only starts
Right now at this
by
moment.
saying captions is turned on. No. So I lost it again. Okay, now I want to show transcript. Oh, yeah. Right now at this moment, by saying captions is turned on. No, so I lost it again. Okay, now I wanted to show oh yeah, right now. I'm repeating myself. So basically there is no transcript. Whatever Sam was saying that he wants me to think about, it's before the transcript. I have no transcript.
No, you will have transcript as soon as the recording is saved in YouTube.
Oh, that's not the Otter transcript, I don't think.
Yeah, it's
No,
the same
but
transcript. Use the transcript on YouTube. It's very, very good. I always do that all the time. It's on the bottom right-hand corner, Barry.
I know where it is, but I think YouTube uses a different transcriber than Otter in live Zoom. I don't think they're the same.
No, it's not the same technology. Using the Google transcript for YouTube.
Right.
And it's very, very good.
Well, my observation is it's not as good as me listening to the audio playback.
I agree, because you have the whole context to compare their wording, but
Yeah.
the best you can get right now is whatever the YouTube transcript can do for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll send you the transcript when I got the video recording, and we can go from there.
Yeah, one thing that Otter does is it actually does speaker identification. So it knows whether I'm speaking or you're speaking, and YouTube transcript doesn't quite do that.
Right.
Unfortunately.
YouTube is not as good as Otter, but Otter, you have to turn on the transcript at the beginning of the session. If you turn it on after somebody has said something, too late, not there. So whatever Sam said before I turned it on, I can't go back and look at it. And I don't have an adequate tape recorder up here. Some people do. Some people can listen to a piece of music and sit down and play it by ear. I don't know how the hell they do that.
His name is Wolfgang.
Mozart. There are people who can listen and recite back verbatim what they hear. I have no faculty for doing that.
So we have an improved procedure for our next conference call or Zoom call, that we will turn on the transcript before we start talking. That will help a lot.
And then you have to stop while I read the transcript.
Yes.
Because if you want me to go back and capture what you said that went past me faster than my listening faculty can run, then I got to stop and read it, which is why I tend to stick in text and not live communication. Live communication tends to go faster than I can listen.
I would definitely do it in your modality and your whatever that works best for you.
Well, mostly I work in text.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm not mostly working text, but I will willing to should I say, sharpen my text communication skill.
I mean, I come to these sessions because, well, Stacy and Sam invited me, but I have to tell you, this is not optimal for me because I can't listen as fast as people talk,
Yeah.
especially if the phonemes are not instantly recognizable as an English word that I instantly get. If I don't get the phoneme, then I got to go back and figure out what was that word? Especially if it's the important word of the sentence.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. I need to get going. 20 minutes past 10. You're wonderful. Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for a wonderful, fun sidetrack discovery. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day for those of you who still
Yes,
have
happy
living
Mother's
mothers,
Day.
I think.
Yes,
Some of you do.
some of us have.
Joshua's still here and he hasn't even turned on a mic or a camera. I wonder if he's even in attendance or bored to tears. He's probably busy with Aya.
Okay, so we'll stop unless it's to
No, we can
continue.
stop. I
Going
just want to
once,
make sure that Joshua wanted to say hello. He could.
Going twice. Going 3 times. Sold to the man in Boston. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.